The baby wouldn't let go of him. A cleaning woman, a billionaire CEO, a child who recognized something no one else could see. When the DNA results arrived, his entire empire trembled. Because some truths don't wait for permission, they demand to be faced. This is the story of a man who controlled everything except his own heart, and the woman who became the only thing he couldn't afford to lose. What happens when silence breaks? When power kneels? When love refuses to stay hidden? Everything you thought you knew about him is about to shatter. If stories like this make your heart race, subscribe and help us reach 1,000 subscribers, because every love story deserves to be told, and yours could be next. Hit that button and join a community that believes in love without borders. It happened on a Tuesday. Amara wasn't supposed to be on the executive floor that morning. Her supervisor had called in sick, and the agency sent her up as a replacement. Last minute, no briefing, just a mop and a bucket and instructions to stay invisible. She was good at that. Invisible. The hallways gleamed like frozen rivers. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city below, a kingdom Jiwon ruled without ever stepping outside. Amara moved quickly, her daughter strapped securely to her chest in a soft carrier, sleeping soundly against her heartbeat. She didn't hear the conference room door open, didn't see him until it was too late. Kang Jiwon stepped into the hallway, his phone pressed to his ear, his voice low and cutting. He didn't look at her. Men like him never did. But Zara woke, and everything stopped. The baby lifted her head, blinked once, twice. Then she screamed, not in fear, not in pain, in recognition. Her tiny arms shot out, reaching, grasping, desperate, and before Amara could stop her, Zara lunged forward with a force that nearly knocked her off balance. Jiwon froze mid-step. The phone slipped from his hand, and Zara, this child who never touched strangers, who recoiled from unfamiliar faces, wrapped her small fingers around the fabric of his tailored suit and held on like her life depended on it. Silence crashed into the hallway. Amara's breath caught. Her hands trembled as she tried to pull Zara back, but the baby clung tighter, burying her face into Jiwon's chest, her little fists twisting into his jacket. "I'm so sorry," Amara whispered, her voice breaking. "I don't know why she... Please, I'm so sorry." But Jiwon didn't move. He stood perfectly still, staring down at the child in his arms as if she were a ghost. His face, usually carved from marble, unreadable, cold, flickered with something Amara couldn't name. Confusion, recognition, fear. "Sir, I'll take her," Amara said quickly, reaching for Zara again. But the baby screamed louder, clinging harder, refusing to let go, and Jiwon, this man who commanded empires, who never hesitated, who never showed weakness, looked at Amara for the first time. Really looked. His eyes were dark, endless, haunted. "What's her name?" he asked quietly. Amara's heart slammed against her ribs. "Zara." He repeated it softly, as if testing the weight of it. "Zara." The baby calmed instantly. Her tiny fingers loosened. Her breathing slowed. She rested her cheek against his chest, her eyes fluttering closed, as if she'd finally found home. Jiwon's jaw tightened. "How old is she?" 8 months. Something shifted in his expression. A crack in the armor, a fracture so small Amara almost missed it. "And her father?" Amara swallowed hard. "He's not in the picture." Jiwon's gaze sharpened. Not in the picture, or not aware? She didn't answer, because she didn't know how. He insisted on a DNA test. Amara didn't understand why. Didn't understand the urgency in his voice when he asked her to stay, to wait, to let him arrange everything. But she saw the way he looked at Zara, like he was staring into a mirror, like he was seeing a piece of himself he didn't know existed. The test was done in silence. A swab from Zara's cheek. A swab from his. 3 days, the lab said. 3 days to shatter a world. Amara spent those days in a fog. She couldn't afford to hope, couldn't afford to imagine what it might mean if the test came back positive. Because men like Kang Jiwon didn't have children with women like her. And if he did, what would he take from her? The call came on a Friday. Jiwon didn't speak when she answered. He simply said her name once, and she knew. She knew before he said it. The test is positive. Silence. She's mine. Amara's knees gave out. She sank onto the edge of her bed, her phone trembling in her hand, her vision blurring with tears she couldn't stop. "I don't understand," she whispered. "I don't." "Neither do I." His voice was raw, stripped of control. "But we're going to figure it out. Together." Jawan's penthouse overlooked the city like a throne room. Amara had never been anywhere like it. Glass walls, marble floors, furniture that cost more than she'd earned in her entire life. She stood in the center of it, holding Zara tightly, feeling like an intruder. Jiwan paced near the windows, his back to her, his shoulders rigid with tension. "I need to understand," he said finally, his voice quiet. "How is this possible?" Amara's throat tightened. There was a night, almost 2 years ago, a charity gala. He turned slowly, his eyes locked onto hers. "I was working the event," she continued, her voice barely audible. "Serving drinks, cleaning tables. You were there with your executives. You were drinking more than usual." His jaw clenched. "I found you alone in one of the back rooms. You were—" She hesitated. "You were upset. I don't know why. But you looked lost." Jiwan closed his eyes. A memory surfacing. Blurred. Painful. "I tried to help you," Amara whispered. "I brought you water. Tried to make sure you were okay. And then I made a mistake." Her breath hitched. "We both did." Silence stretched between them, heavy and unbearable. "I didn't know your name," she said softly. "I didn't know who you were. And when I realized I was pregnant, Her voice broke. "I didn't think you'd want to know. Men like you don't assume you know what kind of man I am." His voice cut through the air, sharp and cold. But his eyes were devastated. He wanted to be involved, immediately, completely. Amara didn't know how to process it. This man, this untouchable, unreachable billionaire, wanted to be a father. But she saw the fear behind his control. The way his hands shook when he held Zara for the second time. The way he studied her face, searching for pieces of himself. "She has my mother's eyes," he murmured one evening, his voice thick with emotion. Amara watched him carefully. "You miss her?" "She died when I was 15. He didn't say anything else. But Amara understood. Zara wasn't just his daughter. She was a second chance. The world didn't know yet. Jiwan's legal team worked quickly, drafting agreements, establishing paternity, setting up trusts and protections. But he refused to hide her. "She's my daughter," he said firmly during a late-night conversation. "I won't pretend she doesn't exist." "Your family won't accept her," Amara said quietly. "Your board won't accept me." "Then they'll learn." His certainty terrified her, because she knew what happened to women like her in worlds like his. They were erased. But Jiwan didn't erase her. He moved her into a private apartment, paid off her debts, hired security. "You're not my employee anymore," he said. "You're the mother of my child. You deserve safety, stability." Amara wanted to refuse, wanted to hold on to her independence. But when she looked at Zara, at the way her daughter smiled now, the way she reached for Jiwan without hesitation, she couldn't. Because Zara deserved this. Deserved a father. Even if Amara wasn't sure she deserved him. They established a routine. Jiwan visited every evening after work, sometimes earlier, if his schedule allowed. He learned how to change diapers, how to warm bottles, how to rock Zara to sleep when she cried. And Amara watched him transform. The cold, untouchable CEO became tender, patient, present. He sang to Zara in Korean, soft lullabies his mother used to sing. He read her stories even though she couldn't understand the words yet. He held her like she was the most precious thing in the world, because she was. But the tension between him and Amara grew, not with anger, with something far more dangerous. Awareness. She noticed the way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching, the way his gaze lingered on her hands when she fed Zara, the way his voice softened when he said her name. And she felt it too. The pull. The impossible, undeniable pull. One night after Zara had fallen asleep, Jiwan stayed. They sat in the living room, the city lights glowing softly through the windows. "I never thought I'd have this," he said quietly. Amara looked at him. "Have what?" "A family." Her heart ached. "You built an empire," she said gently. "You have everything. I have nothing that matters." The words hung in the air, raw and honest. "Until now." He turned to her, his eyes dark and searching. "You gave me something I didn't know I needed." Amara's breath caught. "Jiwan, I'm not asking you to feel the same," he said quickly. "I just need you to know. You're not just the mother of my child. You're—" He stopped, swallowed hard. "You're the first person who's ever made me want to be more than what I am." Tears burned in Amara's eyes, because she felt it too, and it terrified her. The announcement came without warning. Jiwan's PR team released a statement on a Monday morning. Kang Jiwan, CEO of Kang Global Industries, is proud to announce the birth of his daughter, Kang Zara. He asks for privacy and respect during this time as he navigates fatherhood. The media exploded. Within hours, Amara's face was everywhere. Paparazzi camped outside her building. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed. She couldn't leave, couldn't breathe. Jiwan's security surrounded her immediately, but the damage was done. The world knew, and the world had opinions. The headlines were brutal. "Billionaire's secret baby with cleaning woman." "Kang Jiwan's fall from grace." "Gold digger or true love?" Amara read them all, her hands trembling, her chest tight with shame. She'd known this would happen, but knowing didn't make it hurt less. Jiwan arrived at her apartment that night, his face carved from stone, fury radiating from every line of his body. "I'm handling it," he said immediately. "You can't handle this." Amara's voice was flat. "They've already decided who I am. They're wrong. It doesn't matter. It matters to me." His voice cracked, and Amara looked up, startled. Jiwan stood in the center of the room, his hands clenched into fists, his eyes blazing. "You think I care what they say? You think I care about headlines? You should," Amara whispered. "Your reputation." "My reputation means nothing without her, without you." The words hit her like a physical blow. "Jiwan, I'm not letting them destroy you." He crossed the room in 3 strides, stopping just inches from her. "I don't care what the world thinks. I care about you, about Zara, about this." He gestured between them, his breath ragged. "Whatever this is." Amara's heart hammered. "This can't be anything. You know that." "Why?" "Because I'm not part of your world." "Then I'll leave it." She stared at him, stunned. "I'll walk away from all of it," he said fiercely. "The company, the board, the empire, if that's what it takes." "Stop." Amara's voice broke. "You don't mean that. I've never meant anything more." Tears streamed down her face. "You can't give up everything for me." "Why not?" "Because you'll resent me. One day you'll wake up and realize what you lost, and you'll—" "I'll what? Regret choosing the woman I love?" The world stopped. Amara couldn't breathe. "I love you." Jiwan's voice was raw, desperate, real. "I don't know when it started. Maybe that first night. Maybe the moment Zara reached for me. Maybe every single second since." He cupped her face in his hands, his touch impossibly gentle. "I love you, Amara, and I don't care who knows." She broke, sobbed into his chest as he held her, his arms wrapped around her like a fortress. "I'm scared," she whispered. "So am I. What if we can't survive this? Then we'll fall together." But the world didn't stop attacking. Jiwan's board demanded a meeting. His family issued statements distancing themselves. Investors threatened to pull funding, and through it all he refused to bend. "She's my daughter," he said coldly during a tense board meeting, "and Amara is under my protection. If any of you have a problem with that, you can resign." No one moved, because Kang Jiwan didn't make empty threats. But Amara saw the cost. She saw the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight on his shoulders, the way he worked late into the night, fighting battles on every front, and she made a decision. "I'm leaving." Jiwan looked up from his desk, his face draining of color. What? I'm taking Zara and I'm leaving the city. No. He stood abruptly. Absolutely not. You're destroying yourself for us, Amara said, her voice steady despite the tears, and I won't let that happen. You don't get to make that choice. Yes, I do. She stepped closer, her heart breaking with every word. I love you, Jiwan, but I won't be the reason you lose everything. You are everything. His voice shattered. Don't you understand? Without you, none of this matters. Then prove it. She met his gaze, unflinching. Fight for us. Not by giving up your world, but by making room for us in it. Jiwan stared at her, his chest heaving, and then he kissed her, desperately, completely, like she was the only thing keeping him alive. The war began at dawn. Jiwan's eldest uncle, Kang Minho, arrived at the Kang Global headquarters with a team of lawyers, a folder full of documents, and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. We need to talk about the girl. Jiwan didn't look up from his desk. Her name is Zara. The girl, Minho repeated, his tone sharpening, is a liability, a PR disaster. A stain on this family's legacy. Jiwan's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Minho placed the folder on the desk with deliberate precision. We're prepared to offer the mother a generous settlement, $10 million. Full custody remains with you, of course. She signs an NDA, disappears quietly, and we all move forward. The room went silent. Jiwan lifted his gaze slowly, his eyes cold and lethal. Get out. Minho blinked. Excuse me. You heard me. Jiwan stood, his voice dropping to a deadly calm. Get out of my office, out of my building, and if you ever refer to Amara as the mother again, I'll remove you from this family myself. Minho's face flushed with anger. You're making a mistake, Jiwan. The board won't tolerate this. The shareholders won't. The shareholders work for me. The board answers to me. And you. Jiwan leaned forward, his presence suffocating. You have no power here. Minho's hands trembled with rage, but he knew better than to push further. He turned on his heel and left, the door slamming behind him. But Jiwan knew this wasn't over. The Kang family didn't lose gracefully. Amara felt the shift immediately. The security around her apartment doubled. Jiwan's visits became shorter, more tense. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, his shoulders heavy with invisible weight. Talk to me, she said one evening, after Zara had fallen asleep. He sat on the couch, his head in his hands. They're trying to take her from us. Amara's blood ran cold. What? My uncle filed a petition. He's claiming I'm an unfit father, that you're an unfit mother, that Zara should be placed under the family's guardianship until I... His voice broke. Until I come to my senses. Rage flooded through Amara, white-hot and blinding. They can't do that. They can try. Jiwan looked up, his eyes red-rimmed and devastated. I won't let them win, he said hoarsely. But this is going to get ugly. And I need to know. He swallowed hard. I need to know you're with me, no matter what they throw at us. Amara crossed the room and took his face in her hands. I'm with you. Always. He pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. I'm sorry, he whispered into her hair. I'm so sorry you have to go through this. We're going through it together. And for the first time in days, Jiwan allowed himself to believe her. The custody hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks later. Jiwan's legal team worked around the clock, building their case, gathering evidence, preparing testimonies. But Amara knew the truth. This wasn't about law, it was about power. And the Kang family had spent generations mastering it. The attacks escalated. Anonymous sources leaked stories to the press, twisted narratives painting Amara as a manipulative gold digger who'd trapped Jiwan with a pregnancy. Paparazzi followed her everywhere, shouted cruel questions, took pictures of Zara without permission. Amara stopped leaving the apartment, stopped answering her phone, stopped sleeping. Jiwan found her one night, sitting in the dark, staring at nothing. They're going to take her from me, she whispered. No. They're going to say I'm not good enough, that I can't provide for her, that she deserves better. Amara, stop. Jiwan knelt in front of her, forcing her to meet his eyes. You are the best mother Zara could ever have, and I will burn this entire empire to the ground before I let anyone take her from you. Tears streamed down her face. I don't want you to lose everything because of me. I already told you. His voice was fierce, unbreakable. You are everything. But the pressure was destroying him. Amara saw it in the way he moved, slower, heavier, as if the weight of the world had finally become too much. She saw it in the way he held Zara, desperately, as if she might disappear at any moment. She saw it in the way he looked at her, with love, yes, but also with fear. Fear that he wouldn't be enough, that he couldn't protect them, that he'd already failed. 1 week before the hearing, Jiwan's cousin, Kang Su, reached out privately. They met in a neutral location, a quiet cafe far from the city. Su was younger than Jiwan, only 28, but he carried the same sharp intelligence in his eyes. I'm not here to fight you, Su said quietly. I'm here to warn you. Jiwan's expression didn't change. About? Uncle Minho isn't working alone. He's been meeting with your CFO, with board members, with investors. Jiwan's jaw tightened. They're planning a vote, Su continued, a vote of no confidence. If you lose the custody case, they're going to use it as proof that you're unstable, unfit to lead. Let them try. Jiwan, listen to me. Su leaned forward, his voice urgent. They have enough votes. If this goes to trial and the judge rules against you, even partially, you'll lose the company. Jiwan's hands clenched into fists. Then I'll lose it. Su stared at him, stunned. You're serious? I've never been more serious about anything in my life. You built this company from nothing. You saved it when your father nearly destroyed it. And you're willing to throw it all away for my daughter, for the woman I love. Yes. Su sat back, shaking his head in disbelief. You've changed. I have. Is it worth it? Jiwan didn't hesitate. She's worth everything. Amara didn't know about the vote. Jiwan kept it from her, not wanting to add more weight to her shoulders. But she felt the shift, the way he looked at her now, not with fear, but with certainty, as if he'd made a decision that couldn't be undone. 2 days before the hearing, Amara made a decision of her own. She contacted Minho directly, against Jiwan's wishes, against every instinct screaming at her to stay hidden. They met in his office, cold, pristine, designed to intimidate. Minho looked her up and down with barely concealed disdain. You wanted to meet, so talk. Amara lifted her chin, refusing to let him see her fear. I'll take the settlement. Minho's eyebrows rose. Excuse me? 10 million. The NDA. I'll sign whatever you want. His lips curved into a cold smile. Smart girl. On one condition. The smile faded. You drop the custody case. You leave Jiwan alone. You let him keep his company, his reputation, his life. Minho laughed, a sharp, cruel sound. You think you have leverage here? I think you're terrified of him. Amara said quietly. I think you know that if this goes to court, if the world sees how far you're willing to go to destroy your own family, the Kang name will be ruined, not by me. By you. Minho's expression darkened. You're bluffing. Try me. They stared at each other, the air crackling with tension. Finally, Minho leaned back in his chair. You walk away. Quietly. No contact with Jiwan or the child. Ever. Amara's heart shattered, but she nodded. Deal. She didn't tell Jiwan she couldn't. Because if she did, he'd stop her, and she couldn't let him sacrifice everything for her, not when she could save him. That night she packed a single bag, kissed Zara's sleeping face, wrote a letter she knew would destroy him, and left. Jiwan found the letter at dawn. His hands shook as he read it. I'm sorry, I love you. But I can't let you lose everything for me. Take care of our daughter. Be the father she deserves. And please, don't come looking for me. This is the only way we all survive. He didn't cry. He didn't scream. He simply stood in the center of the empty apartment, holding the letter, feeling his heart turn to ash. And then he made a phone call. Cancel the hearing. I'm coming in. Ji-won walked into Minho's office without knocking. His uncle looked up, startled, then smug. "So, she told you. Where is she?" Minho leaned back in his chair, savoring the moment. "Gone, just like we agreed." Ji-won's voice dropped to a lethal whisper. "You have 5 seconds to tell me where she is, or I will destroy you. You're in no position to make threats, nephew." She signed the agreement, took the money, walked away. "It's over." Ji-won slammed his hands on the desk, the sound echoing through the room like a gunshot. "You manipulated her, threatened her, made her believe she had no choice. She had a choice. She made it. Because you gave her an impossible one." Minho's smile widened. "And now you have one too. Sign over your voting shares to the family trust. Step down as CEO. Let us appoint someone more suitable, or I'll make sure you never see that girl again. And before you threaten legal action," he slid a document across the desk. "She signed an NDA. Any contact from you constitutes a violation. We'll take the child, permanently." Ji-won stared at the document, his vision blurring with rage. "You're a monster. I'm a realist. You were weak, Ji-won. You let emotion cloud your judgment. And now you're paying the price." Ji-won's hands trembled. Every instinct screamed at him to lunge across the desk, to destroy this man who'd taken everything from him. But he couldn't, because Zara was sleeping peacefully in the next room, watched by his security team. And if he lost control now, he'd lose her too. So he did the only thing he could. He walked out. He didn't sign. He didn't step down. Instead, he called an emergency board meeting. Every member, every shareholder, every executive. He stood at the head of the table, Zara sleeping against his chest in a carrier, and spoke. "My uncle believes I've become weak, unfit to lead, compromised by emotion." Murmurs rippled through the room. "He's right." Silence. "I have been compromised. By love, by fatherhood, by the realization that everything I've built means nothing if I lose the people who matter most." He looked around the table, meeting each person's eyes. But weakness? No. It takes far more strength to choose love than to choose power. It takes more courage to be vulnerable than to hide behind control. Minho stood abruptly. "This is absurd. He's clearly—" "Sit down." The command in Ji-won's voice froze everyone in place. "I'm not finished." He adjusted Zara gently, his hand cradling her head. "You wanted to know if I'm fit to lead this company. Here's my answer. I built Kang Global from the edge of bankruptcy to the Fortune 500. I've negotiated deals in 14 countries. I've turned billion-dollar losses into record profits." His voice hardened. "But none of that matters if I can't protect my own child. If I can't stand up for the woman I love. If I let fear and manipulation dictate my choices." He pulled out a folder, thick, detailed, damning. "This contains evidence of every unethical deal my uncle has made in the last decade. Every bribe, every threat, every violation of corporate law." Minho's face went pale. "I've had investigators working for months. I know everything. And if you try to remove me from this company, I'll release it. Not just to the board, to the press, to the SEC, to every regulatory body that will listen." Minho's hands shook with rage. "You wouldn't dare. Try me." The room erupted into chaos, shouting, arguments, threats. But Ji-won remained calm, his hand steady on Zara's back. When the noise finally died down, he spoke one last time. "I'm not stepping down. I'm not signing away my shares. And I'm going to find Amara, whether you like it or not." He looked directly at Minho. "And if you try to stop me, I'll bury you." He hired the best investigators money could buy. Private detectives, digital forensics experts, people who specialized in finding those who didn't want to be found. It took 3 days, 3 agonizing days of dead ends and false leads. But finally, they found her. A small town in Oregon, a modest apartment under a false name, working at a diner, alone, hiding. Ji-won was on a plane within the hour. Amara saw him through the diner window. Her heart stopped. She dropped the coffee pot she'd been holding, the ceramic shattering on the floor, brown liquid spreading like a stain. Her manager shouted something, but she couldn't hear, couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Because Jiwan was walking toward her, Zara asleep in his arms, his eyes locked onto hers with an intensity that made her knees weak. She ran, out the back door, into the alley, desperate to escape, but he was faster. "Amara, stop!" She kept running, tears streaming down her face. "Please, just stop!" She stumbled and he caught her, wrapped his free arm around her waist and held her as she collapsed against him, sobbing. "Why did you come?" she choked out. "I left so you could be free." "I don't want to be free. I want you. You'll lose everything. I already lost everything when you left." He turned her around, forcing her to look at him. "I don't care about the company. I don't care about my reputation. I don't care about any of it. You're lying. I love you." His voice cracked. "I love you so much it's destroying me. And I know you love me too. I know you left because you thought you were saving me. But you weren't. You were killing me." Amara shook her head, tears blurring her vision. "They'll take her from us. They'll take everything. Then let them." He cupped her face in his hand, his thumb brushing away her tears. "Let them take the company, the money, the empire. I don't care. As long as I have you and Zara, I have everything I need. Jiwan, marry me." The world stopped. Amara stared at him, her breath caught in her throat. "What?" "Marry me," he repeated, his voice steady despite the tears in his eyes. "Not because it makes sense. Not because it's strategic. But because I can't imagine spending another day without you. We barely know each other. I know you're brave. I know you're selfless. I know you'd sacrifice everything for the people you love." He shifted Zara in his arms, the baby stirring slightly. "I know you're the best mother Zara could ever have. And I know," his voice broke again, "I know I want to spend the rest of my life proving that you didn't make a mistake by loving me." Amara couldn't speak, couldn't move, could only stare at this man, this impossible, infuriating, beautiful man who'd just offered her the world. "Say yes," he whispered. And she did. The wedding was small, intimate, just the three of them, a judge, and two witnesses Jiwan trusted completely. No press, no family, no spectacle. Just vows spoken in a courthouse at dawn, with Zara babbling happily between them, her tiny hands clutching both of their fingers, as if binding them together herself. When the judge pronounced them married, Jiwan kissed Amara like she was oxygen itself. Soft at first, reverent, then deeper, as if sealing a promise that transcended words. Zara giggled between them, and they pulled apart, laughing through their tears. "We did it," Amara whispered. "We're just getting started." And for the first time in months, they both breathed freely. The backlash was immediate and brutal. Headlines screamed scandal across every major publication. Billionaire CEO marries cleaning woman in secret ceremony. Kang family in chaos after Jiwan's shocking marriage. Love or recklessness, the fall of Korea's most powerful dynasty. The Kang family issued official statements of disapproval, each more scathing than the last. 3 board members resigned in protest within 24 hours. Investors demanded emergency meetings. Stock prices fluctuated wildly. Jiwan read every headline, every hateful comment, every attack on Amara's character, and his resolve only hardened. He called a company-wide meeting. Not just executives, but every employee, from entry-level to C-suite. He stood at the front of the auditorium, Amara beside him, Zara sleeping peacefully in her mother's arms. "I know what you've been reading," he began, his voice calm but commanding. "I know the rumors, the speculation, the judgment." Silence rippled through the crowd. "And I'm here to tell you that I don't care." Murmurs of surprise. This company was built on the principle that integrity matters more than image, that doing what's right is more important than doing what's easy. He reached for Amara's hand, lacing their fingers together. "My wife is the strongest, most courageous person I've ever known. She's faced discrimination, cruelty, and manipulation with grace I can't even comprehend. She's an extraordinary mother, a brilliant mind, and the woman I'm proud to call my partner." His voice grew stronger. "If anyone in this room has a problem with that, the door is wide open. Leave, right now, because this company will no longer tolerate prejudice, elitism, or the kind of toxic culture that values status over substance. No one moved. But if you stay, Jiwan continued, his eyes sweeping across the crowd, you stay because you believe in building something better. A company that doesn't just generate wealth, but creates opportunity. For everyone. The applause started slowly, then built, until the entire auditorium was standing, clapping, some wiping tears from their eyes. Amara looked up at Jiwan, her heart in her throat, and he looked back at her with a certainty that could move mountains. We're going to change everything. Minho tried one final attack, a coordinated smear campaign designed to destroy Amara's reputation completely. He hired publicists, paid for fabricated testimonies, planted false stories about her past. Within a week, the internet was flooded with lies. That she'd deliberately targeted Jiwan. That she'd trapped him with the pregnancy. That she had a history of manipulating wealthy men. None of it was true, but lies spread faster than truth. Amara stopped reading the news, stopped checking social media, stopped answering her phone. She sat in their bedroom one night, staring at nothing, her hands trembling. Jiwan found her there. He didn't ask what was wrong. He already knew. He simply sat beside her, pulled her into his arms and held her while she cried. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry you have to deal with this. Stop. His voice was gentle but firm. You have nothing to apologize for. Nothing. They're destroying your reputation because of me. They're trying, and they're failing. He tilted her chin up, forcing her to meet his eyes. Because the people who matter, the employees, the partners, the clients who share our values, they see the truth. And the ones who don't? He shrugged. We don't need them. But your uncle is about to learn a very painful lesson. Jiwan had been preparing for this moment. For weeks, his legal team had been quietly gathering evidence, not just about Minho's recent attacks, but about years of corruption, embezzlement, and corporate fraud. He released everything, not to the press first, to the authorities, the SEC, the FBI, international regulatory bodies. Within 48 hours, Minho was under federal investigation. His assets were frozen, his reputation shattered, his power obliterated. And Jiwan released one final statement. My wife, Amara Kang, is the strongest person I know. She's faced discrimination, cruelty, and manipulation with grace and courage that humbles me every day. She's an extraordinary mother, a brilliant partner, and the woman I'm honored to call my family. To those who've supported us, thank you. To those who haven't, that's your choice. But understand this. I will spend the rest of my life building a world where people like Amara aren't judged by their circumstances, but celebrated for their character. And if you have a problem with that, I don't need your approval. I already have everything I need. The response was overwhelming. Support poured in from unexpected places. Employees shared their own stories of overcoming prejudice. Competitors publicly praised his stance. Strangers sent letters, emails, messages of encouragement. And slowly, powerfully, the narrative shifted. From scandal to inspiration. From shame to hope. From judgment to love. 6 months later, they moved into a new home. Not a penthouse overlooking the city. Not a mansion designed to impress. A house. A real house with a backyard and a garden and space for Zara to run and play and grow. It had large windows that let in natural light. A kitchen that smelled like cinnamon and coffee. A living room with mismatched furniture that Amara had chosen herself. It felt like home. Amara stood in the kitchen one morning, watching through the window as Jiwan chased Zara across the grass. Their daughter was running, stumbling really, her legs still unsteady, but running nonetheless, shrieking with laughter every time Jiwan pretended to catch her. He finally scooped her up, spinning her in circles, her delighted squeals echoing across the yard. Amara's chest tightened with emotion. She'd never imagined this. Never dared to hope that life could feel this. Whole. But here she was, living a dream she hadn't even known she wanted. Jiwan found her there an hour later, still leaning against the counter, lost in thought. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. What are you thinking about? How different everything is. Different good or different bad? Different, right? She turned in his arms, meeting his eyes, those dark, endless eyes that had once seemed so cold, but now radiated warmth. I spent so long believing I didn't deserve this, didn't deserve you. And now? Now I think maybe the universe knew something I didn't. He smiled, that rare, genuine smile that still took her breath away every time. What's that? That some love stories don't follow the rules. They break them. He kissed her softly, reverently, as if she were something sacred. We didn't just break the rules, Amara. We rewrote them entirely. The company underwent a transformation. Jiwon restructured everything, policies, leadership, culture. He removed every executive who'd supported his uncle's corruption. He promoted those who'd stood by him, regardless of their background or status. He introduced new initiatives, comprehensive parental leave for all employees, on-site childcare, equal pay audits, mentorship programs for employees from underrepresented communities, scholarships for children of staff members. The board resisted at first. These programs will cost millions, the CFO argued during a tense meeting. Then we'll find the money, Jiwon said calmly. It's not financially sustainable. Neither is a culture that treats people as expendable. We're doing this. And they did. Within a year, employee satisfaction soared. Productivity increased. Turnover plummeted. And Kang Global's reputation transformed from ruthless corporate giant to industry leader in ethical business practices. But Jiwon wanted more. He'd been thinking about legacy, about what kind of world Zara would inherit. One evening, he sat Amara down at the kitchen table, a folder in his hands. I want to show you something. She opened it carefully. Inside were architectural plans, financial projections, partnership proposals. What is this? A foundation, he said quietly, for families like yours, single mothers, people working multiple jobs just to survive. People who deserve opportunity, but never get it because the system is designed to keep them out. Amara's eyes filled with tears as she read through the plans. Free childcare programs, job training initiatives, educational scholarships, housing assistance, legal aid for custody battles. Jiwon. I can't change the past, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I can't erase what you went through, but I can make sure other women don't have to face the same struggles alone. She looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. Why? Because you taught me something I never understood before. He reached across the table, taking her hands in his. That privilege isn't just about having resources. It's about using them to lift others up. And I've been hoarding mine for too long. Amara couldn't speak, could only stare at this man, this impossible, beautiful man, who kept finding new ways to prove that his love wasn't just words. It was action. 1 year later, Zara took her first real steps. Not the stumbling, uncertain movements of a baby learning to walk, but confident strides, from Amara to Jiwon and back again, as if she'd always known they were meant to be together, as if the space between them was the safest place in the world. Jiwon caught her just before she fell, lifting her high into the air, her delighted squeals filling the room. Again! Zara shouted. Again, Daddy! Amara watched them, her heart so full it physically ached. We did it, she whispered. Jiwon looked at her over Zara's head, his expression soft. Did what? Built something real. Something that can't be taken away. He crossed the room and pulled her close, Zara giggling between them, the three of them wrapped in an embrace that felt like home. We didn't build it alone, he said softly. We built it together. 2 years after they met, Amara went back to school, not because Jiwon asked her to, but because she wanted to. Because she'd discovered something powerful. She had a mind for business, for strategy, for seeing patterns others missed, for understanding people in ways that data never could. Jiwon helped her apply to business school, top programs, the kind she'd never even dreamed of attending. You'll get in, he said confidently when she hesitated over the application. You don't know that. Yes, I do, because you're brilliant, and they'd be lucky to have you. She got into every program she applied to, chose the one closest to home so she wouldn't have to be away from Zara. And for the next 2 years, she studied. Late nights at the kitchen table, textbooks spread out, Jiwon bringing her coffee and quiet encouragement. Early mornings before Zara woke up, reviewing case studies and financial models. She graduated top of her class, not because of who her husband was, but because she'd earned it. During her final semester, something shifted. Amara started attending Jiwon's board meetings, initially just to observe, to learn, but she noticed things: inefficiencies in supply chain management, opportunities for sustainable partnerships, gaps in market research that were costing millions. And she started speaking up. At first, the board dismissed her, smiled politely and moved on. But Jiwon didn't. He listened, implemented her suggestions, and watched them succeed. "You're better at this than I am," he said one night, half joking, half serious. Amara laughed. "I'm not. You are. You see things I miss. You understand people in ways I never could." He looked at her with something close to awe. "You should be running this company." "Jiwon, I'm serious." And she realized he was. 3 years after their wedding, Jiwon made an announcement that shocked the business world. He called a press conference, rare for him, as he'd spent years avoiding the spotlight. But this was important. Amara stood backstage, her heart pounding, Zara holding her hand. "You don't have to do this," she'd told him that morning. "Yes, I do." Now, watching him take the podium, she understood why. "I've spent the last decade building an empire," Jiwon began, his voice calm and steady. "I've negotiated billion-dollar deals, expanded into 14 countries, turned this company into one of the most profitable in the world." He paused. "But profit isn't legacy, and success isn't the same as impact." The crowd murmured, "I'm stepping down as CEO." Gasps rippled through the room. "Not because I'm retiring, not because I've failed, but because I've finally learned what true leadership looks like." He gestured to the side of the stage. "And it looks like her." Amara's breath caught as the spotlight found her. "Amara Kang isn't just my wife. She's the most brilliant strategist I've ever worked with. She's transformed our supply chain, our partnerships, our approach to sustainability. She's built programs that have changed thousands of lives." His voice grew stronger. "But more than that, she understands something I spent years ignoring. That business isn't just about profit. It's about people. And she's proven over and over that when you invest in people, everything else follows." He looked directly at her. "Amara Kang is the new CEO of Kang Global Industries." The room erupted. Half the crowd stood, applauding. The other half sat frozen, stunned. Amara stood backstage, tears streaming down her face, Zara squeezing her hand. "Mama, they're clapping for you." Jiwon walked off the stage and straight to her, ignoring the chaos behind him. "You ready?" She looked up at him. This man who'd given her everything, who'd fought for her when the world said she wasn't enough. "I'm terrified." "Good. That means you care." He kissed her forehead gently. "Now go show them what I already know, that you're unstoppable." The transition wasn't easy. There were doubters, critics, people who said she wasn't qualified, that she'd only gotten the position because of who she married. Amara heard every whisper, read every article questioning her credentials, and she let it fuel her. She worked harder than anyone in the building, arrived first, left last, made decisions that were bold, strategic, compassionate. She restructured departments, forged new partnerships, launched initiatives that prioritized both profit and purpose, and slowly, powerfully, she won them over. Not because she demanded respect, but because she earned it. 5 years later, Kang Global was ranked the most ethical company in the world. Not just profitable, purposeful. Under Amara's leadership, they'd launched programs in 20 countries, built schools, funded healthcare initiatives, created job training centers. They'd become the standard for what business could be when guided by conscience, not just capital. And Amara? Amara had become one of the most respected CEOs in the industry. Not despite her background, because of it. Because she'd never forgotten where she came from, never lost sight of the people she was fighting for. On their 7th anniversary, Jiwon surprised her. He'd been secretive for weeks, disappearing at odd hours, making mysterious phone calls. Finally, he blindfolded her and drove her somewhere outside the city. When he removed the blindfold, Amara gasped. They were standing in front of a beautiful building, modern, glass-fronted, surrounded by gardens. What is this? The Amara Thompson Foundation. Her hands flew to her mouth. It's everything we talked about, Jiwon said softly. Child care, job training, legal aid, housing assistance, education programs, all in one place. He turned her to face him. You changed my life, Amara, and I wanted to build something that would let you change thousands more. She couldn't speak, could only throw her arms around him and hold on as tears soaked his shirt. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for teaching me how to see. 10 years after that impossible day in the hallway, the day Zara reached for a stranger and changed everything, Amara stood on a stage accepting an award. CEO of the Year, not Woman CEO of the Year, just CEO of the Year, the best, period. Jiwon sat in the front row, Zara beside him, now 10 years old, brilliant and confident, and their son Daniel squirming in his lap. When Amara reached the podium, she looked out at the crowd, at the hundreds of faces watching her, and she thought about the girl she used to be, the one who cleaned floors and believed she was invisible, the one who thought love was something that happened to other people, the one who never imagined she could build an empire. Thank you for this honor, she began, her voice steady. But I didn't get here alone. She looked at Jiwon. I got here because someone saw me when I was invisible, believed in me when I didn't believe in myself, and taught me that love isn't about perfection, it's about partnership. She smiled through her tears. This award isn't just mine. It belongs to every single mother working 3 jobs. Every person told they're not enough. Every dreamer told their dreams are too big. Her voice grew stronger. You are enough. Your dreams aren't too big. And you deserve a world that sees you. The applause was deafening. And as Amara walked off the stage, back to her family, back to the life she'd built from nothing, she realized something profound. She'd never been invisible. She'd just been waiting for someone to look. And Jiwon, beautiful, impossible Jiwon, had never stopped looking. Years passed. Zara grew into a brilliant young woman who spoke 3 languages and dreamed of medical school. Daniel became a gentle soul who loved music and spent hours composing songs at the piano. Amara continued leading Kang Global, transforming industry standards, proving that business could be both profitable and humane. And Jiwon spent his days doing what he'd always wanted, being a father, being a husband, being present. They traveled the world as a family, built a life filled with laughter and love and the kind of peace that only comes from surviving storms together. And every night, before bed, Jiwon would find Amara wherever she was in the house and pull her close. I love you, he'd whisper. And every night, she'd respond the same way. I love you more. Impossible. Prove it. And he would, with a kiss that still made her knees weak, with a touch that still felt like coming home, with a love that had rewritten every rule. Because some love stories don't follow fairy tales. They create new ones. And theirs, built on truth, forged in fire, sustained by choice, was the most beautiful story ever told. Not because it was easy, but because it was real. The end.